today I bring to you the final sit down interview with Dre. Hope you guys enjoy it. Much love. Do better, be better.
Like open-minded and loving, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
That really could just get on there and say, you were there to support people. I would do it in a heartbeat because I do. I think this past year, you and I saw it. I think it still happens now where, I've seen it, especially going through this as a COVID long hauler. I've seen people get on there. I've seen, I've gotten more in the habit of just block, delete instead of just because I'm tired a lot more now, is I've seen people try to tie my race into fighting COVID.
Mhm.
And that I was like, first time I saw it, I still had the 103 fever and I just assumed it was the fever. Like, I was like, I can't be reading this. Like I was like, I must be hallucinating. Like, I was like, I gotta be tripping. Like, it has to be me. And then it was a couple days later, the fever broke and I was like, no, I read that right. And I showed my wife, I was like, no, I wasn't tripping. And she was like, they really said, because you're Black, you should. And then I had, and I almost screenshotted this and sent it to you, but I really didn't want to bother you. There was about 5 people, and I deleted and blocked them for a week straight when I had said I got this, that sent me direct messages that said, ask your doctor about getting this medication. It worked wonders for Trump and Giuliani. And they were serious. They were dead serious. And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm straight. I'm cool. I was like, I'm glad it works for them. They never had it, but I was like,
Yeah.
They never had it, but I'm good. So to me, I still think what's weird to me is in 2021, halfway through the year, it's still weird to me that we still have this fight of people that don't believe that racism exists. And that's the frustrating part to me, is that and not just the fact that racism doesn't exist, but want to fight you about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because my thing is, if I don't believe something, we were talking about this before this started. If I have a team that you don't like, and you support a team that I don't like, cool. You just support a team I don't like. I'm not coming at you. I'm not coming at you about that. That's just, we might crack some jokes. Like, we don't crack jokes because we joke. Like, that's fine. But I'm not coming at you about a team that I don't like. I just don't get the whole, if you don't believe in racism, then sit in your house and don't believe in racism. Why do you have to come at me?
Yeah.
Because I believe in it, and 2, I have facts, but that's a whole different conversation. That's the part I don't understand, is why do people who feel the need that they don't believe in racism feel the need to come at us so angrily about it?
It goes back to the phrase, and I held the book, and I gotta get to reading it. It goes back to, like I said, when you want to have a sense of an accomplishment, and someone starts nitpicking and picking at that, it takes away from your accomplishment. And I was talking to my wife about this the other night. It's just like, if you are having a contest on who can build the best house, one person was given a pair of boots and a hammer, and the other person was given a hammer, tools, lumber, worker, $50,000, the whole nine. And you want to show everybody that you won the contest, when we clearly know that it wasn't even close to being fair. So that takes away from your shine. But look at this big, beautiful house I built all by myself. No, you did not do this by yourself. You had contractors, lumber, help, money, banks, and everything. This person had a hammer and boots. Pull your boots up. And so once you start picking at that, and with the masculine macho era that we live in, you heard a man's pride. That's women be sensitive, they cry and things like that. But you heard a man's pride, the level of I'm gonna get you back or I'm gonna show you, it can be pretty tragic, and that's where we at. So anytime where we know that America has this ugly history that they don't want to acknowledge, they don't want their kids to know about it. They just want, like you said, put a bow on it, Harry Tubman frees the slaves, Martin Luther King did this for Black people, everything was all fine and dandy, and that's the story they want to tell, And so once you keep poking at that, and we keep seeing everyday activities play out involved in racism and hate, that takes away from their shine. They feel like if whatever accomplishment that they had, that it's not as big and shiny and bold, because of what the past was. And I say this, and I'm turning back to you. It's just like when that guy that lost the presidency, he said that he started out a successful businessman with only $1 million loan, only $1 million. So we sitting here thinking, like, if someone only gave me $1 million, I think I can manage some business and not file bankruptcy on a lot of them, But
excuse me, bankruptcies, bankruptcies,
yeah, exactly.
Bankruptcy, and get kicked out of New York a couple of times. But go ahead, sorry, I digress.
When you start, like I said, making people actually look in the mirror on what's going on in this world. That's why, like I said, on a lot of these comments, like, did you even read this out loud before you post this? Do you know how ridiculous this sounds? You know how hideous this comment is? Like, read it 3 or 4 times. Like they used to tell you in college when you're doing oral communication, read your speech out loud to make sure it sounds right. Like, did you even read this? Because at the end of the day, they feel like you are taking a jab at them for their accomplishment, when that's not the case. You have benefit what's happened. We are addressing it, but don't act like you won the contest and you was given boots and a hammer also. That's not the case.
And you're right. And I have said that to Damari when I've posted things during this, like in the civil unrest, especially before I got sick. And I said, I feel like, I think you and I have had this conversation. I feel like someone sits at home and feels personally attacked because I discussed Ahmaud Arbery getting murdered. And I'm like, how are you feeling personally attacked because a father and his son hunted down a gentleman who was out running? And I'm like, how is that possible? The other thing, I going back to the critical race, I've said this also, and I said this one, I said, some of the things I think that people aren't thinking about with critical race theory is I also feel like this is a way for hateful people to get the current things that have happened these past 5 years to not get discussed in history class in the next 5 to 10 years. I think this is a way to not get George Floyd, to not get Breonna Taylor, to not get these countless other names to get discussed in our younger children's high school history class. I think it is less about it's less about the Malcolm X, the Black Panther Party of that history to get discussed, and more about the history we see happening right now to get discussed in a high school class 5, 6, 7 years from now. I personally think it's that sneaky. I think it's that cowardly. I think it's that well, let's not talk about that. Let's not discuss that, because we don't want to admit that. We don't want to talk about that.
Like you said the key word calculated, and my wife and I always had a discussion. That word right there, calculated, planned, thought out, chess, like everything is so well thought out. The fact that the Tulsa massacre, the depths that they went to refuse to acknowledge this event, yet alone talk about it, shows you how everything is well thought out, planned, and calculated. And that's the sad part that we have in this world, all the way to the red line and any and everything that you can think of when it comes involved to the minorities in this country trying to rise above and be treated as equal or have the same living wages that you have or whatnot. Everything is so calculated. Go ahead.
No, sorry, it's wrong. But I'm like, Black Wall Street I've never seen that in my years of schooling. I've never seen that in a history book. I had to learn about that. I think I was in church. I think I learned about Black Wall Street in church.
Yeah.
I don't think that was ever in a class. Like I really think that was Sunday school was the first time I ever heard about Black Wall Street, and then the rest of that was me learning on my own. I mean, dare I say before the internet, because I know it really puts the age thing on it, but I'm like, I don't think that was ever a history thing. And even anything I learned about, like truly Malcolm X, anything I learned about the Black Fred Hampton, anything I learned about the Black Panther Party, that was not. I don't think that wasn't. If I took anything in a history book of the Black Panther Party made it sound like that was first thing. It made it sound like the Black Panther Party was a start stop thing. Because you would never know the Black Panther Party was still going on.
Yeah.
It made it sound like it was a from to. It was a tombstone thing. It was a from to thing. It was never still going on. I mean, listen to Public Enemy in the 80s. That was it. I mean, that was my Proud to Be Black was Chuck D, and still, that was it. But I mean, so yeah, I mean, I definitely think a lot of that critical race theory, a lot of that will come from, we'll never see any of that, the stuff that we've seen the past 6, 7, 8 years, never be in a written book and on purpose. I don't think any of this is by accident. And I think that there are people that are not, that will, wow, the one video that has gone around of the lady in the school board meeting that was like, just because I don't want my kid to learn about critical race theory doesn't mean I'm racist, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But if I turned around and said the same thing, everyone would say, I hate white people.
Yeah. And like I said, it goes back to, at the end of the day, we're in 2021, and people want to feel, like I said, they want their accomplishments to be acknowledged. I learned about guilty by association a long time ago. When I was in 8th grade, when I went to a football game with a guy who had a BB gun, and word got out he had a BB gun. We all got suspended, recommendation for expulsion or whatnot. Everyone got expelled but me, because I wasn't a trouble kid and I had good grades. That was my first time getting in trouble. But I'm like, why am I getting in trouble just because I walked to the game with him with a gun? I literally.
That's what I was about to ask. I'm like,
I literally didn't understand that. Well, guilty by association, you knew he had a gun. Let's say he did shoot somebody with a gun. You should have told the cop once you guys got there, hey, this guy has a gun. That's the way it was explained to me. So people know what guilty by association is, and it doesn't make you feel good, because a lot of people, they know some of the success that they have could be because of their own hard work. We're not doubting that. But like I said, you still have to address the elephant in the room at the end of the day, where this country started at, how it started out, and where we are today, and why you still see this trend of hate, crime, racism, all the way back to when the government was planting drugs in the Black people communities. Like, it's so many incidents and massacres throughout history. That's just it's a good 20 massacres of just Black people getting lynched and killed throughout history that you can just Google and look up. One that shocked me was the one in Lane, Arkansas, and one of my friends that I went to high school with told me this, how his mom helped one of the ladies during that time. And so you have genuine white Americans in here that are just kind-hearted people, who some of them don't have the, I won't say the heart, but they don't want to deal with just the hatred, because they know how hard it is. They see it every day. They see it from their side. We see the hatred from, the Facebook post medias and things like that. But they didn't sit back and listen to Willie get drunk and well off and how he actually feel about, Muslims or Black people, whatever the case may be, so they getting that in-depth hatred,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tough. It's going to take, like I said, all of us, the 20 plus million that marched with the BLM, and just putting some paperwork in people's lives to, if they want to see change. Now, the people in charge not doing that, like I said, if you're still trying to water history down and put a rose and a bow on everything, then, like I said, Ruby Bridges, the people that was yelling at Ruby Bridges have grandkids now or parents now. Their kids gonna learn that same thing, and the cycle just continues. So America has to decide, let's take this makeup off. It's time.
It's two things. I'll wrap this up. It's two things. I told someone this. I told everyone this. I said, I grew up in what everyone calls the hood. I grew up gang violence around me, everything else. And I said, Never felt more safe than in the hood.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time I ever had someone pull a gun on me was a racist cop. Only time in my life I ever stared down the barrel of a gun was a racist cop. Oh, that's only time in my whole life was a racist cop. And that dude didn't even have the guts to show up to the court case. That because it was me and my best friend who's Filipino was coming home, and it was me. I was 16. He was driving the car, and his little brother's in the back seat. He got the nerve to call up 6 squad cars. He throws my friend on the hood, takes him to jail. I don't have a license. I was like, what are you supposed to do? He's like, well, you can drive the car home. He takes him and left us. So I'm staring down the road. That was the first time I was like, he could just kill us right now, and it don't even matter. His parents, my friend's parents, are well off. He was like, we were suing him. This dude doesn't even bother showing up to the court.
Yeah.
None of the 6 squad car police officers bother showing up. But I'm like, never felt more safe in the hood. Only time I get anxiety is you want to get a truck with Trump and all these other "Don't Tread on Me" and all these other Confederate flag trucks with no muffler pull up next to me. I get anxiety then.
Yeah,
but
with the little snake flag.
Right. Roll through the hood. I'm cool. I got windows down. I'm like, what's up? But only time I had a gun put on was that. Secondly, is we were talking about, like, as far as people think you have to go so far back, and again, this is one little fact I always like to tell people. I was like, do you realize had they not been killed and if they were still alive, that Anne Frank and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. should be the same age and should be alive today? Let that rattle and ring right now. They shouldn't be 100 and something years old. They should be the same age and alive right now. That's not that. To give you an idea that that's how recent history we should be. You're talking about Ruby Bridges. That's how recent history it should be. Is Anne Frank and Dr. King same age?
Yeah.
not 100 and something years old, exactly. Same age. So, and again, like, my age is like, it's not 200 years ago. It is, I'm one generation removed from my mother and her aunts standing at the window watching my dad, who was president of the NAACP chapter in Paducah, Kentucky, getting into his car because that was the time that they were putting pipe bombs in the cars of every Black civil rights leader. He stood on the steps in Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech. That was during the time. Again, you only got to go one generation above me. It's not a whole bunch of years ahead of me.
People want everything to seem like it's 400 years ago.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, everyone wants to make it sound like when it was, everybody communicated by telegraph, and we took sail, but like, I'm like, no, dog. Like, it was still color TV. Like, it wasn't 200 years ago. Like, this was still 1970 something, 1960 something. It wasn't like, I'll tell people, like, Sammy Davis Jr. was still having to come through the back door with the rest of the Rat Pack. Yeah. When he was performing with Dean Martin and all, like, this was still, Elvis Presley was still jacking songs from people to perform when he was coming out. I'm like,
still stealing songs. Like
right. I'm like, it wasn't long ago.
It wasn't long ago at all. I said Ruby Bridges, those parents, those people that was yelling Ruby Bridges had kids, and then they grew up, and now they got kids today. Like, that wasn't 400 years ago.
I told somebody else the other day. I said, you realize you have it in Texas, and I have it in Kentucky. There's still sundown cities today. Like, and understand those people that are sheriffs and elected officials in those sundown cities are the children of those people. They're not the grandchildren. They're not the great grandchildren. They're the children of those people that were of the officials of those sundown cities. It wasn't passed down from 18 generations ago. I'm like, they just got it from those parents. I'm like, it's not. And I think going to what you're saying, I agree with you. I think that, like you said, the people that were yelling at a 6-year-old, Ruby Bridges, like, I think there are certain, the people that march with Black Lives Matter, that I'm very appreciative of those allies. I am very appreciative of those. And I think the election in 2020 showed that there are tons of allies.
Yes.
that I also tried to make sure I was very appreciative of those people in a lot of my posts. I didn't want to come out like I hate all people not of color, because that would be stupid. That would shoot ourselves in the foot as far as progress we tried to make. But I did feel like you do have to hold those people accountable that you sit at the dinner table with, that you are fully aware are not, that are hateful, that would hurt my children, that would hurt me.
Yeah.
You can't break bread with those people that you know are hateful.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is, we do, as comfortable as those people that are hurtful and hateful and racist, we know too many people that are comfortable letting those people be comfortable. And I think that's the chain we have to break first.
That's the next
to me,
step.
in my opinion, this is me speaking for me. I mean, let me, because we had this conversation too. Stop asking that one Black person you know to speak for an entire race.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that. Stop asking that one Black person to speak for all Black people, because that got old in 2020 real quick too.
Yeah.
But you to me, that's the next step, is you stop being comfortable in letting that person be comfortable in hatred.
Yeah.
Like, break that chain. Because I guarantee you, if you stop letting somebody be comfortable in hatred, because you were like me, and we probably grew up at the same time. If somebody's being a bully, punch them in the mouth one time.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you they stop being a bully. If somebody's playing the dozens and they talking about you one time, talk about their mama one time. I bet you they stop doing it. I bet you they stop doing it. And it's like, so if they're doing that and you make them stop doing it one time, they will stop. They no, it's just like cockroaches. If you turn the light on one time, they scatter, they run.
And that's crazy, because I had a lady, we were real good running friends. She lived in Utah. I'm 40. I'll be 40 this year. So she's probably like 52, 53. She lived in Utah. We've been Facebook friends forever since I started my first running journey, And so we got to the point to where, I could see where her comments were going every time. She would only come over there about, conservative posts or whatnot, And so she eventually admitted to having racist friends, because I was like, I'm not going to stop at a gas station with rebel flags out of it. When I lived in Arkansas, we used to travel to Kansas City, Missouri, where my wife is from. We used to have to go through a part of Arkansas that had a number of rebel flags up in there, and we knew that we couldn't stop from when we left Jonesboro till we got to West Plains, which is kind of the safest place. And a guy still pulled up in front of me one time at a Walmart with a rebel flag painted on the hood of his truck. So we literally looking eye to eye the way our cars matched up. He had a rebel flag on his hood, and I'm pumping gas in our car. We in West Plains, Missouri. That's the closest one. It's some little small town called Thayer and all that stuff. But I sit there and talk, I was like, if we knew if anyone had to use the bathroom, we need to get it done, because it's not safe for us to stop in these areas. She had trouble admitting that, like, oh, everybody doesn't have rebel flags. And so it got to the point to where she finally admitted that she has racist friends, but she's not racist. She even said that, well, don't you have racist friends? I said, why would I have racist friends? Like, we gonna have to talk about this, and you're gonna have to get this out of your heart, and you can't be my friend. Like, I'm not going to keep hanging out with you. I said, how would that work if me and you are running friends and you want to come visit, or we're gonna run a race together and you have racist? I don't know who your racist friends are. Like you said, you know who they are, but here I am in the midst of your circle of friends, and I'm simply trying to figure out who's racist or not, because I only know this because you told me you have racist friends.
And you're like, how am I going to turn my back on anybody in this group of people?
How does that even work? Like, how can we even hang out if you have racist friends? Am I going to be sneaking in like when you go in the bathroom, or we go in the kitchen, like, hey, is Ronnie one of your racist friends? Like, the audacity, like, if sense was coming, we would all have it. Like, well, don't you have racist friends? I'm like, why would I have racist friends? Why do you have racist friends and think it's okay? So, like I said, once we get to the point to where we start crossing that barrier, you're gonna have to start calling Becky out, Samantha out, Ronnie out, because, like I said, one thing that 2020 showed me. Yeah, you had the people that had the Confederate flags and the big trucks and the tires and all that. They have no trouble letting you know where they stand. But there's a lot of people that are racist that wore heels and makeup. 2020, which was real shocking to me. I was like, wow. And you go look at their profile picture and family, just nice people, look like they just regular, normal, nice people. And then you read this vile post, you be like, she couldn't have wrote that. That did not come out of this lady's mouth. Like, this lady did not type that. And then you go back and look, you're like, yes, she did type that. So, like I said, at the end of the day, progress is being made, but we still have to make it. Well, long as we keep hearing them saying cancel culture, and they don't know if Becky or Ronnie is on their team when they saying they little racist joke at work, then we're still gonna keep making progress, along with getting, proper laws or some guidelines in place, being serious about these people that are being racist. But we can't just go back into this, okay, let's give them a pass now. That's just running being running, or Susan, she was raised in a different era, so she think that's socially acceptable now. That stuff those days are over with.
And then they'll be the ones to tell us, be like, well, you need to pray for them. You need to have love in your heart. I'm like, hold up. Why didn't they have love in their heart when they're, why do I have to have, like, I got to forgive them for having hatred, but they don't have to not hate? Like, how does that work? I'm like, I don't understand that. Like,
I shouldn't have to be praying for them if they wasn't hating in the first place.
Right. Like, so they're allowed to hate and I got to forgive them, but they don't have to not hate? Like, hold on. Like, where in Proverbs did you read that? I'm confused. I skipped that week. I guess I must have missed that in the building fund. I'm confused. I must have missed that. I'm confused. Where did that happen?
Every time they come, they want to pray for you. I hope you get that hate out your heart.
Yes.
No, like, we need to be praying for them. They don't want. I'm responding to them. Like, it's like I said, if you have 99,000 in your account, it's easy for you to say, just calm down.
Yeah.
I only have $5. I cannot be calm.
They hit you with, well, bless your heart. No, don't hit it. Like, someone's like, oh, I don't understand why you're so angry. I'm like, first thing, you don't need to understand a damn thing of what I'm doing. I mean, I'm a grown person. That's the first thing. You don't need to. Like,
why are you trying to figure that out?
Right. You're not my wife, so you don't need to understand anything at all. Like, you don't have my last name. Like, you ain't got my rib. You have my last name. We cool. But secondly, if somebody is hateful, why am I having to have any sort of emotion toward? Like, I don't understand that. Like, shouldn't we fix the hateful person? Like, why am I having to pray and love and I got to practice all this? Like, I got to turn cheeks. I don't understand this. Like, why? Yeah. But I agree with you. And I people are like, well, and that was my other favorite thing. Well, that's how they were raised. And they just heard that in their house and this and that. Oh, okay. Well, they get a pass. Okay. You're right. You right. So yeah, that was my favorite. That was my favorite thing last year. That's just all they know. And there's no.
Like I said, and
we went through
one of the they're uncomfortable or they're mad about. Like, you're not going to keep getting a pass. Like I said before, if you have something that's wrong, if you have your transmission that's wrong with your car, you have you need to get some new tires, and you also need to get your AC fixed. You have 3 things wrong with your car. The first thing you're going to do is get your transmission fixed, because getting tires and AC is irrelevant if you cannot.
If the car can't track, right, and we went through this with a lot of people in my wife's family, because I went through this with a lot of my friends, because I was fed up with people getting passes, and I was like, and I got to a point where I was like, babe, you can do whatever you want, because I'm not that husband to be like telling you what to do. One, because I ain't trying to get killed in my sleep. I ain't trying to end up on snaps. Like, but I said, as far as the line in the sand for me, this is where it ends. And there was a lot of, and she was like, no, I stand with you. And I was like, cool. But I was like, I can't, and she understood it, and she got it. But there was a lot of that with that going on. But I was like, no, I said, we're all, I think with anything my family was abusive to me, and I've talked about it, but there's line in the sands of where, yes, there may be a certain kind of way your parents taught you to do stuff, but at some point you're a grown ass person. Yeah. You know how the world works. You know if you want something to eat from the cabinet, you don't go and get peanut butter and mustard and bread. That shit ain't gonna work. No. That's not gonna work. I mean, if that's what your parents got you for 20 years, somewhere in that 25th year, you like, that don't taste right. That don't taste right. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing like that. My parents always taught me that, but that don't work right. That don't, if you doing laundry, you don't go get a red T-shirt to put in with all the whites, even if that's what your parents taught you. You realize that don't work. That don't work. So if your parents have been saying N-word this, N-word that, or have always called women B-word this, B-word that, or have always said this about Muslims, or as we saw, what is it? I saw a 483% increase on violence towards Asian Americans, that this and this, but you honestly see that that's not right. At some point, as a human being of some level of intelligence, you have to see that that's not right, no matter what you have been told in your house. Yeah. And that's where I don't understand where we're allowing people to get a pass of, well, that's what they've always known. If you're over the age of 30 and you've been outside your house for any significant period of time, why are we not holding people accountable for that? Like, to say, make up your mind. Like,
that's like I said, that's where we at right now. Just holding people accountable. So they can call it cancel culture or whatever they want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's called it's owning up to your actions. You know, that's what Chauvin had to do. You know, we're not going to keep getting these passes. And like I said, I said earlier, if someone goes in and burn down Steph Curry's house, you better believe the news and media, everybody's going to be there. Doc Rivers, it was a head basketball coach. They burnt this man's house down, and it just got swept under the rug. Like, you know, that's what they do. You know,
we had just moved. We had or we were about to. We lived in Orlando before we moved to Kentucky. We had just moved, or we were about to move when that happened. And I looked at my wife and I said, "That's why we're moving." I go, because everyone wants to say Orlando's this great place because Disney World, this and that. And I go, and that's the kind of stuff you deal with in Orlando, Florida. I go, that right. And my wife is, no one ever knows this because she's fair skinned, green eyes, blonde hair. She's first generation Cuban American. She spoke Spanish before her parents came over when Fidel took over. She's, I mean, like, but everyone just look, and that's why she'll experience both sides of racism, because she'll experience people talking crap about Latino people because they think she's white. And so she'll hear people. She gets to witness people being sneaky racism, not even knowing it. Yeah. And not even know. And then so it's like, she's like, and I'm like, that's what it is. People see that stuff all the time. And I was like, that's what it is. People just think, oh, Orlando's the happiest place on earth. But I'm like, we used to witness that stuff all the time. Me and her walking around when we were dating and when we first got married. Us holding hands, everybody's like, oh, I just can't believe that. And same thing with Latinos, would see us walking around and say stuff. And I understand Spanish, but people say stuff to us in Spanish all the time. And it would just be ridiculous. And I'm like, that's the point where, if there's nothing else of 2020 and 2021 that I think has been positive, is that it's made some people uncomfortable. It needs to make more people uncomfortable. And yes, I completely agree with you. Paperwork needs to happen now. There need to be laws as far as, yes, we've made people uncomfortable. Now there needs to be, it needs to be accountability. Now there needs to be, you're uncomfortable, but now you need to do some jail time. Yeah. You need, like, it needs to be, you messed up, so now you need to lose some stuff. You need to lose some free time.
It's going to take a period. It's just like when you make new rules and whatnot. Unfortunately, someone's going to mess up, and you have to make an example out of those people. Like when policy and guidelines change, you like, they're going to have to know that we're serious about it. So these people going to get the burner end of it or whatnot, you know. But that's the phase that we need to start entering into now. Like, I still can't find any more info on the guy that got shot over there in was it North Carolina, the last case what Crump was working on, where they say it was basically he basically got executed when he was driving from the cops or whatnot, you know. And so they still didn't release any of the other body cameras footage.
Nope. Not at all.
And okay, let's let this die out, and something else is going to happen. And so that's the strategy that's been going on here lately. Let's put some sports in front of them, you know, while we're trying to pass laws that's going to penalize you for driving more than 2 people to the polls to vote. Like, who comes?
Which is ridiculous. Which is so ridiculous to me.
Like, do you actually? This is how meticulous and well thought out these people are going about trying to pass legislative. At 2:00 in the morning here in Texas. Like, if you drive more than 2 people, you have to have documentation saying why they rode with you to vote. That's what y'all trying to do now.
And the only thing that was missing that I kept waiting for I kept waiting for somebody to say is, you're going to have it notarized. Like I really was because I kept waiting. I was like, they're gonna try to make it sound like you have to have documentation notarized at that time. Like you got like you can't just have Corey and Dre are rolling in. Corey, his wife, Dre and his wife are gonna be in the car together, but you gotta have it notarized documentation at that time. Like it can't just be we in the car got a note. It's got to be notarized at 2:00 in the afternoon while they was in the car together. Each one of y'all got to have a note, not just one note, not just one note per car. Each one of y'all got to have a note notarized at that time.
Like the day when your parents tried to write you the note from PE to school. No,
like it's got to be signed and notarized at that time. Like I'm like they and I'm like it's. I had this conversation with someone because again, it's Kentucky. Somebody's like, gas prices are rising. See what happens when Biden's president. And I said to somebody, I was like, well, I'm confused. I thought you said Biden didn't win the election and Trump really won. And they're like, well, yeah. I was like, well, then if Trump won the election, then these gas prices are rising and Trump's the president. Yeah. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. Make up your mind. I'm like,
so technically, Trump prices, right?
Right. I was like, you can't have it. You can't just keep changing the game, the rules, because the game ain't working.
Want to move that goalpost. So, but overall, right now I'm at a point to, like I said, I'll be 40 this year, and I told my daughter, I said, Cam, if you're not ready to watch the Tulsa Massacre, just make sure that you ready, and we're gonna watch it together. I'm gonna get my son here this summer, and we're gonna talk about some things and things like that. But it's just at the point to where I have to tell them the detail of how I got to be a 40-year-old man and how careful I was in this world, how careful I have to be in this world on every decision that I made to not have one strike against me because I want to make it home to my family. Like
my daughter turned 16, getting her license, man. Having that conversation.
Yeah, and so like it's plenty of house parties that I said no to in college, because I remember going to Arkansas State up there in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The Kappa Alpha fraternity house had the rebel flag sitting outside their house at the time in 1999 when I was a 17-year-old freshman, and so they had the rebel flag sitting outside their door or their fraternity house, and we would have frat brothers. The Kappa Alphas and the Alpha, the Pikes, they was friends and they would have parties or whatnot. And then they was like, you have some of the cool Pikes, that was in band with some of the other people and all that. They have a frat party. Just go to the house. I was like, y'all going over there? Like, I don't care how many women gonna be there. Don't you know that they have rebel flags over there outside their door? Well, yeah, I'm going with Rob. I'm going with so and so. No, it's those type of decisions that you got to say no to some things. Period. In order for your own safety, because at the end of the day, you could be the 12th man on the Atlanta Hawks that nobody even know about. Black man, right, on the Atlanta Hawks, making $6-7 million a year. You get pulled over by the cop on the wrong day on the wrong road, and you can
That's it.
You can be in a bitch.
You posted about this the other day. I went to college in Boston, and you were talking about Kyrie and that dude that threw the bottle. Mm-hmm. And I went to college in Boston. And I'm gonna tell you right now, the number of times like it was like, oh, we taking the T, we going into Boston. And I was like, and I look at something, I was like, no, I'm not going. Mm-hmm. Because no. And the people, I'm like, you talking about one of the most racist places on the planet. Yeah. Forget the United States.
Yeah. Boston racism, racist city is well documented,
Talk about Bill Russell. I'm like, no, there's plenty of times I would be like, one of my fraternity big brother, we still cool now, and he lives in Quincy outside of Boston, and he's of Asian descent, and there was plenty of times he and I would, everyone's like, oh, we going to do something, he and I would be like, nah, we gonna hang out on campus. It was like, because like you said, and especially because you know how college parties are, you would look up and easily be the last two. Yep. Like you and a group of friends would be like, oh, we going into town, we going to do this. And y'all have a good old time and look up and be the last two of the group. Man, you know how many horror movies I've seen start that way? No, exactly. I'm not gonna be the one. Exactly. And then you talking about walking around Boston, taking the T. It was just a subway, taking the T. No, and the T ends. The T ends at 11:30. So you talking about walking to? No, dude. No.
It's certain things decision that you have to analyze as being a Black person in this world, who you're not going to be able to do certain things growing up. and it's even more polarizing now in the wake of what's been going on these last 4 years.
Right, and we didn't have, like, again, we were just the internet was. I mean, we called it electronic mail. That's how brand new. I graduated high school in '90s. You talking 91, 92, but like I was telling my daughter, I said this was something like you were looking at like 5 o'clock on a Friday. Like the party wasn't starting until 11 on a Friday night. So this was something you were looking at. We're like, oh, where's it gonna be? We got to go through here. Nope, not doing. Like we just gonna hang out, or we was gonna go catch a movie, or we just gonna. Back then, we're just gonna go to Blockbuster and rent a game, and we gonna play Sega Genesis. We gonna play. Date myself. We gonna rent Bull versus Lakers. We gonna rent Bull versus Lakers on Sega Genesis.
On Sega Genesis. Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
Go to
yeah,
since like you said, Blockbuster, Premier Video.
Yeah, and West Coast Video was all one of them. We was gonna get that. We was get some wings, and was get some wings. We was gonna do that. Because it didn't have a save feature, so you could pause it. You couldn't save it and it was like that was what we gonna do we was gonna play a playoff series, but everything was best of 7. We was gonna do that because you couldn't, because like I said, you go somewhere and look up and be the last two leaving somewhere, and the T had already run, and it was college, you couldn't afford it. You wasn't gonna pay a taxi, you wasn't gonna pay that, and you have to walk through. Nah, man, nope.
Yeah, it's just certain, like I said, it's just certain stuff that as a black person in this world that you just in this country that you're gonna have to make decisions, and they're gonna come like second nature. Like, no, where's it at what time? No, I'm not. You cannot do that. It's just like if me and you went to Zinc, Arkansas, and rented a room. We
hell no.
We are asking for trouble.
I know exactly where you were talking about, dog. Yeah. No, me and my wife lived in Memphis for a year. That's where my oldest daughter is born. And we were talking about I told my daughter about that. I said she's 16 and she's the oldest of her friends. So she's the first one to get her license. And I'm like, sweetheart, I love you. You're an intelligent person. I'm telling you right now. But you can't be the one always giving your friends a ride home from work or this or that, because that means you're the last one to be out on the road somewhere coming home. So that means you're the last one at night coming home, which means you could potentially be the first one to be pulled over, because I'm telling you right now. Oh, you there?
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm here.
That was weird. My phone, it was declining. I was like, because that means, and I've shown her this. I said, watch, we're sitting at a red light and the cop just pulled up behind me. He's already looking at his computer.
Mm-hmm.
I said, just look, don't turn around, just look. I said, now, and we've been at other red lights, and the cop's been behind someone else who was not of color. And I said, he ain't looked at his computer at all. No. But I said, every single, and I looked, I said, every single time he's looking, and I go, registration's up to date, everything's up to date, we're fine. Yeah. I was like, I'm telling you, we're fine. Like, he's doing it. And there's times mommy's been driving, and I go, look in the mirror. He ain't looked at a thing, because all he saw is blonde hair sticking out from the driver's seat. Everything's fine. And I said, so sweetie, I go, you're biracial, you're bicultural, but you've got curly hair. You've got most of my genes because you're the oldest, and you're darker complected. So this means you would be driving your friends home. You'd be the last one to come home, so it'd be late at night. You can't be doing that.
Yeah. It's sad. It's unfortunate. Like I said, I remember growing up, man, we could ride bikes across town and come back home. And,
all day, man.
All day, be out, but it's a different world. And I've been having those tough conversations with my daughter. She'll be 14 next month. But I don't say they kind of been robbed of their childhood, but it's just so much hatred in this world that you don't want your kid. You don't want your kid to be on a billboard or a milk carton box. It's just, it's just not what no parent wants, and unfortunately your skin color dictates that sometimes, what's appropriate place for you to be at or whatnot, it shouldn't be that way. Like I said, if we want to go visit Zinc, Arkansas, we should be able to go there if we want to do that, if it was something of our interest there. But
windows down, music playing. We should be able to totally do that.
Well, we go to Zinc, Arkansas. They must have been asking for trouble. What were they doing over there?
Right.
So it be that way.
If we wouldn't get 2 miles in before it be blue and red lights behind us.
Yeah,
right? Y'all lost.
And Harrison was like for a while. So it's just 2021. I think we're making some progress, but we still got to break through this blue wall. Like I said, they had some easy legislation ready to be passed to make hold these cops accountable for these shootings, putting their info out there, stop letting them get hired. It's simple stuff. If we are horrible at our job, we are not going to keep bouncing around from job to job. Like if I was a horrible manager at Chick-fil-A and my last previous employer asked me who I need to, where did I work at or whatnot, they gonna find that info out, period. It's just like if you become a teacher or whatnot. If you have a sexual assault or anything like that on your record, you're not about to become a teacher. But if you don't have to disclose,
and I sure as hell wouldn't be promoted. I wouldn't be promoted.
So if you don't have to disclose it or hide that, now you can have pedophiles in here teaching your kid. And next thing you know, a superintendent, they moved up to a superintendent now, So why are we hiding that this person has 18 strikes on their record? And then you get fired from this little police precinct in Mississippi, and now you're working down in, Greenville, Mississippi, because you got fired in Jacksonville, Mississippi. Yeah, it's a small town, but you are still out there putting people's lives at risk, and after you already had 18 strikes on your record. So it's a no-brainer when you're looking at it from the outside, like, why are we hiding this? Like, anybody that has something to hide, we need to see that, and yet you still have people that get on TV, have suits on, and look us in the face and lie and dance around as if we can't get this done. But we will move heaven and earth to build a $1.3 billion stadium in San Diego or California or Nevada. Or
quickly. Build it quickly.
Well, a stadium up and, everything ready to roll. But when it comes down to get some legislative pass, it's always issues. Like I said, we have to start holding the people that we elect. They got to start feeling more heat. It's got to get more uncomfortable for them when it comes to getting things done and passed. Like it's certain stuff that, like I was telling my wife, I remember when, cause Kamala said this as well about America not being racist, and I think, of course, Tim Scott said it. But I'm like, it's certain stuff that I'm just not gonna say. I don't care how much money they pay me. I don't care how politically correct it is. And I was using an example as like someone, some of these people admit to murders that they didn't do. I'm like, we're gonna be in this interrogation room till the sun go down.
Right, yeah.
Before you get me to tell you I committed a murder I didn't do,
y'all better order some pizza because we're gonna be here for a while, dog.
If you think you can get me to tell you that I killed someone and I know I didn't do it, I will
stretch all 4 of these chairs out and make a bed before y'all. But and at the same time, like, and I've said this as well too, is also the one thing that does bring me hope, and I've had this conversation with allies, I've had this conversation with people of color, is people like your kids, people like my kids, people like other people's kids, is that we are raising a generation of people that don't play, that are done. There is a generation that is about to be 18 these next couple of years that don't give they're done. They don't care about these old white people. They don't care. They're done being scared. They're done not being heard. They think these old rules are stupid, and they're about to vote. I mean, that's the thing. Like, my daughter's 16. She'll be 17 this year. That means 2022 she votes for the first time. There's a generation that these next 2, 3, 4 years will be legislative age.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that means 4 or 5 years will be old enough to make not just voting, or old enough to be in a position to do something, not just vote, but as far as hold office.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, that's the hope, because they've watched this. They've watched you and I be upset. They've watched you and I shed angry tears. They've watched you and I and our peers march. They've watched you and I and our peers be upset. They've watched our peers die. They've watched their, because I know that you've seen plenty of them. You've seen these 14, 15-year-olds call out their parents that are racist. Yeah. And be like, I'm not with you. Like, and so I mean, that, to me, that's the hope, is that there's a generation there that's like, I'm not with them. That is about to vote. So, and I do think the good side is I think that's why you're starting to see, again, I go back to the turning on the lights and seeing the cockroach scatter analogy, is you're starting to see a lot of these sneaky legislation like you're seeing in Texas. A lot of these people trying to pass stuff at 2:00 in the morning. Is everybody starting to realize they're almost done. And that's even Mitch McConnell here in Kentucky. You're starting to see people realize, seeing the white writing on the wall and realizing, damn, it's time to circle the drain because we ain't got nobody. We ain't got nobody.
Options are slim. Like you said, some of them kids, some of their best friends are gay. They don't care about that. It takes too much energy to
hate. Yes.
Like that's the words on you. And I don't understand why people would want to wake up and do that every day.
Right. Like
projected to be a minority-based country by the year 2050. 2050, we project to be a minority-based country. So
let's be honest, Dre. It's 2021. Let's look around. You're in Texas, I'm in Kentucky. Let's look around. It really screw the census. If people really turned in the census, it really is a minority-based country right now.
Because Texas is real sneaky with their census with white. They got them all meshed in there together. Like, and see, that's another thing. Some people I keep saying they, but I'm saying people that are that has the ink pen or the pencil or whatnot. If you start trying to get too smart and actually digging in and asking questions, like they expect for you to tell them answers, you just be like, okay, those days are over. Let me do a little research. Let me see what y'all numbers really look like, And the way they do their population down here or their ethnicity down here in Texas, they including the Latino in with the white on the driver's license. It's kind of I was like, why do we have 4 categories? And the lady kind of explained to me. I went and did some research on it. I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. So, I say about 2050, it's projected to be a minority-based country. Raising these kids are right, let them think for themselves. And like I said, hopefully we'll be going in this country. We move once we ready the departure. We'll be in a lot better place, because I definitely think I would be marching or protesting in 2020 with my 13-year-old, or was she 12 at the time? Yeah, she was 12 at the time. In Dallas, doing a Black Lives Matter rally. Like I would never in my wildest dreams thought that, but that's how far it failed. That's how
I was gonna say that's where the needle brought us, right?
Yeah, I'm like, what in the world? How do we even get to this point in 2020 or whatnot? So I'm hopeful. Like I said, we have a strong following of our allies with us, but at the end of the day, until we start seeing, like I said, when we start seeing that pen moving, that pencil, that pen signing legislative paperwork, that's when we're getting somewhere. That's when we really can see some real progress, because it's law now,
Yes. It'll be, I do. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you would add, now, let me be clear, because I'm not going to make this sound like sunshine and rainbows. If you'd asked me this time last year, I didn't feel this way. I didn't feel hopeful. And I'm going to be real honest. I think the way I've seen things happen in the past year, I feel hopeful because I see a whole lot of lawmakers nervous is what makes me hopeful. Because I think this time last year, I saw a whole lot of lawmakers sitting there and be like, oh, they're just complaining and they're just marching, blah, blah, blah. Right. Right. That's exactly. It'll blow over. We'll just be back to doing stuff here. I see the fact that Mitch one day says one thing, the next day he does this, and he's trying to appeal to this. Ted Cruz one day was when y'all had snow, was trying to bounce out of the country and then packed his bags and flew back, and then was doing this and people trying to pass voting, like you said, voting legislatures in the middle of the night, and then like you said, them trying to do this in North Carolina. Like the fact that people are really trying to be extra sneaky, which it does sound like a paradox, but I think you understand what I'm saying. The fact that people are trying to be extra sneaky, that lets me know they're extra scared. Because you ain't trying to be. If you're comfortable, you ain't sneaky. Because you're just being like, it's cool. Like this time last year, when all this was going on, wasn't nobody doing nothing. Wasn't nobody sitting in Capitol Hill. Everybody was just like, whatever, cool, whatever. But now everybody's trying to be extra, everybody's trying to pass this voting legislative, because they know, everyone knows what 2022 elections, about what the seats are going to be like in 2022. Everybody knows what the voting is going to be like in 2024. So now everybody's trying to pass these little voting legislation in this summer, because they know what these seats are about to look like in 2022. And everybody's going to be like, well, crap, we about to lose all the power in the Senate in 2022. So let's hurry up and pass these little voting legislations now, so we can try to hold, we can hold on to whatever we can.
Yeah. I mean, Atlanta started with that crazy legislation that they passed about, you can't give anybody water and food and all that crazy stuff. It just goes to show the left's a devil, the calculation, this stuff. Some of these people are sitting around thinking to try to win an election. It's unfortunate, that they have that much hatred in their heart. And like I said, we can't take it. We can't take anything in this world with us. Nothing.
No, and it's the first group of people that were like, okay, we want to do voting elections, but then they were the first ones to be like, no, we can't count the vote. We can't count the mail-in votes. That was the first sign that last year that was the first sign you knew it was going to be some crap. Yeah, we want to do mail-in vote from now on. Now we can't count mail-in votes. We always the ones that want to do mail-in votes.
Yeah.
So, but now we can't count them because it's cheating. No, and now it's, well, we're not going to provide water. And I'm to the point where I don't understand how we can do so many things online, by phone, by app, whatever, but we can't vote.
Yeah.
We can't, like, by the basis of just voting as a general thing. We can handle money. Let's be honest. We can handle paychecks, money, by phone, by watch, by computer, by whatever. But we can't handle a vote.
They can track it. They can track it from, you get the number from the phone or whatever they track it with, and they can know how many times the phone voted, how many times it voted from this number. Anything they want, any kind of chart or any kind of data they want to run, they can set it up to do that,
But we can't track a vote in real time. We can't know who won an election in real time. But we can track everything in this world. I can track a FedEx package. I can track it. Well, I can't track FedEx. FedEx sucks. Like, we track everything in real time except voting, and everyone gets in uproar about that. Everything else, but yet voting is such an issue, and we're behind in doing that. But yet, all of a sudden, it's like, let's do it by this. No, we can't. Now like you said, now some states be like, well, we're not going to give you food and water, but we're going to have voting from some state. Well, maybe it was Georgia. Who said that we're going to do voting from 11 to 3? Someone was trying to say 11 to. Maybe it was Georgia.
It was Georgia and Texas. Texas eventually took their statement back, saying theirs was a typo, but they was
okay. Yes, the typo. Yeah. That's what else is Texas. Okay, I was like, somebody was saying it was 11 to 3, and then the overnight. Yeah, the overnight. Like, no, that was a typo. We meant 6 or something.
They was on the floor debating why they put that in there, because they said that the poll workers want to go to church as well. So it wasn't a typo. You seen it in there. You put 1 p.m. behind it. Like I said, the people are so sneaky, and I still, like I said, it doesn't. I can never figure out why people are like this. Like, it doesn't move me any kind of way, whether you are gay or straight or whatever the case, whatever you're doing in this world, who you want to vote for, that's your right. I'm not going to rig anything up.
But because I said to my wife, I was like, so let me get this straight. You can have a store open on Thanksgiving and Christmas Day from 6 a.m. to midnight, but we can't have a voting place open for more than 5 hours.
Yeah, with on
a weekday, on one day, on a weekday. That's what I'm to understand as an American, as a tax-paying, somewhat intelligent. I'd like to give myself a little bit of credit. American. That's what I'm to understand. We can't do that, right? Like, we can't do that for one day.
Yeah. We got to get to, when we do this again, let me know when you. I also want to. Oh my gosh, why I say this? Our athletes is who I want to discuss, because I was telling my wife this. I was like, there's no reason why, because we all know the low poverty ends in the countries or in the cities or whatnot. I said, there's no reason why they shouldn't be holding like this big convention every summer, doing donations, dumping that money into the community. I know people doing their own thing, but people, people like to look good. So you don't have people like, oh, you donated 40,000, I'm doing 40,000. They're gonna be trying to match each other. We take all that money. Like I live here in Dallas. South Dallas looks like nothing compared to where we live at here in the suburbs up here in Frisco. Just put it that way. Like the schools are so old, they still have window units. Everything has cages around them. Like the roads are bad. Like it's just like we're gonna dump these people down here. We're gonna redline them, and that's where they're gonna live at until they perish or whatnot. You know, if some are lucky enough to make it out this environment, kudos to them. But it's too much money in this world for us to be having, especially sports towns, for South Dallas to still be looking like that. You know, it's too many athletes in this world. Like we have to not just do stuff like you said just for show. It had to be some substance to it. Not just, okay, this is the new thing that everyone's jumping on, I'm gonna speak out against it or whatnot. No, if you have that much money, we need to find out what is going on in our own community. Why? How come you're not as passionate enough from a guy that's making $40,000, $50,000 a year? I'm upset of seeing this. Here you are making $7 million a year, or whatever the case may be, $20 million. You live in this city and that's okay with you. Like we have to start, that's a direction that I'm interested to see, like, well, how come we can't get this going? Because you put a show on for the Oscars every year, or whatever the case may be, when you want to give out awards for all that. Let's do something for these low poverty areas, try to build these communities up and get kids back on the right track. You know, it's too
I like that.
money and opportunity in this world for South Dallas to be looking like that when we have the Dallas Mavericks, we have the Dallas Cowboys, we have the Dallas
Stars.
You got the Texas Rangers. You put on a thing like that every summer, you could raise what, $398 million, and then disperse it and hand it out and build stuff, and you know.
Oh hell, Jerry Jones and Mark Cuban could carry that around in their back pocket right now. What you talking about? I mean, you ain't got to do it. Mark Cuban be like, here.
You know. So
well, hold on, and we're gonna wrap this up. But I do like that idea for another episode. I can tell you right now, off the top of my head, the only reason no one's ever thought of that in general, not just Dallas, half the problem is most of the problem is 90% of your athletes from those teams don't live in the city they play in. And I mean, because honestly, if you look at most of those players and I'm picking on my own team. So call me a seller. I'm picking on my own team. 90% of those players, and I'm talking big names, and you can pick on football because you got a 52-man roster. So I mean, football's probably the exception. Baseball probably comes in a second as far as bigger rosters, but when you start getting into like the Mavs, Stars after that. But most of those players don't live in because you got a bigger off season than you got bigger off season than you do main season. They don't live where they play. Soon as that season's over, they are out. They are like Zeke. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Zeke's main place is in like Puerto Rico. Not Puerto Rico. Is it's an island somewhere. Yeah. I know, because that's where he was. That's where he was when
he was rehabbing or whatever the case.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, like it's where, because most of Dak may be an exception, but I think his is in Florida too. I'm like, I think most of those people, once they're done with a season, and also I am not justifying it, and I'm not saying it's right, but most of those people, they're done with a season, they ain't even thinking about it until it's camp. You know what I mean? Like they're like, hell, does Jerry even live in Dallas anymore? I mean,
I haven't seen.
I mean, other than him buying out Neiman Marcus for Christmas time for the staff and everything, I'm like, because I'm pretty sure, and even then, when I say Dallas, I mean he's probably north of, like, I mean, like, so because most of them, and Mark Cuban may be the exception to that as far as
still lives in Dallas.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he may be the exception to everybody as far as owners. Like,
he has some acres, so I mean, once you get to the gate, you can't even see the house. It's
I was like, you probably got a driver to a driver to a
Yeah.
4x4 to a
Yeah,
subway system to
anything.
get to get.
Literally in the middle of he's literally in the middle of like a little rich neighborhood or whatnot.
I was gonna say he probably got an area code, like a phone area code to himself, like a zip code to himself. But I'm saying like, because I guarantee that's probably the problem is most of these dudes don't live where they now. Again, 52-man roster, you probably have some linemen. That's that's where they are. Like that's where they are. But most of those big dudes, it's probably like once they only show up when it's that. So their only concern about Dallas is late June to well, look, I'm about to sell my team out when the playoffs start because we ain't making the playoffs that much, but is when the playoffs start and then they out till whenever. But I do think that would be a wonderful idea, and especially basketball time. I think there's a lot of give back to the community, even if you did something where it was like, hey, we're going to have a basketball camp in a neighborhood, and it just turned into old school. Like it sounds corny, but almost like a block party that it just turned into. Somebody pulled up a Brinks truck worth of cash that was given back to the community.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere with these communities who are mainly affected with minorities, people of color, whatnot. And like I said, like I was telling Cam the other day, like the red line will disappear if people start getting loans.
Real quick before you're on, I don't know if you ever heard this story about Shaq, and this is when we were living in Orlando, and Shaq used to, and this is even when he got traded to LA, and this was even after he retired. One of the things I've always loved about Shaq, and this is a true story when he first got to Orlando. He was walking around the mall one time, and he was always one of those dudes that he would never walk around with security. And he always invited people to come up to him. He'd sign autographs all day long. Didn't matter. And there's one day, this old lady was near him, and she was like, oh, could I have your autograph for my grandson? And he was like, sure, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, why are you? She's like, he goes, why do you seem so sad? And she was like, oh, my grandson loves you. And this is when it was the only year he had, I think it was Nike, or I can't remember who it was. And he was like, why are you sad? And she's like, my son loves your shoe, but he can't afford them. And he was like, oh, and that was the year he started his own shoe. And that was when you could only, like, it was Kmart was at the time. That's when he started his own shoe, because he was like, I want people to be able to buy my own shoe. And that's like the last year he had ever had it with Nike. And the whole point was he wanted his shoe never more than like $50, because he wanted everybody to be able to buy it. And I always had mad respect for him. Yeah, that's true. You could only get it. And I'm like, because it's true. Like,
was in Kmart. They was in Kmart. I remember Kmart.
Yeah, and I was like, and it's true. Like I think it was like, was it Reebok? Was it after that? It was like, it's like now you still can only get it. Like it's still inexpensive. But he was like, what's the point in paying me millions of dollars, but no one can get my shoe? And I always had mad respect for him, because like if your kid's a Kyrie fan or a KD fan or whatever, and you want to get their shoe, it's like, dang, like whatever. But it's true. It's like if you're a fan of an athlete, what's the payout? Like what's the payoff to support them? It's like you're already getting a ton of money and a ton of residuals. Yeah. Like, can't you give back somehow to the community? Yeah. Thank you so much. Prom, take care of yourself, man.
You too.
Talk to you later. Bye.